Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49.
Well, good morning. I forgot that Adam was not going to be introducing the show for a second, so I had a little pause in my brain. Mr. Adam Marino will be out for the next couple of weeks, and personal things happening there. Nothing bad for him. More some people he's connected to, so he's helping out on there. And we are waiting for your return and eagerly awaiting that, Mr. Adam, if you're watching at this moment. But want to give a big good morning to all the faithful who are here. A lot of regulars are in the chat. We have had a fascinating free agency period, not only for the 49ers, but for the Houston Texans. They have been active this free agency period. We have some Texans fans in the chat. It's always great to see y'all in here. We got some new names in here. I will take one moment. If you have not heard, the legend, the man, the myth, he did not experience death. Death has now experienced Chuck Norris. But rest in peace, Chuck. I kind of odd story. I had a professor in college who literally was Chuck Norris's doppelganger. I don't know. He used to be really overweight, and then he lost a bunch of weight one year, and he looked like his twin. And it was around the same time all the Chuck Norris jokes were really hitting. And I will say he looked so much like his twin. Somebody actually put a picture of his face on Chuck Norris's body and put it on his office door. Nobody knew that they had swapped faces, like that it was our professor's head on Chuck Norris's body. Nobody knew it. Everybody thought it was just a picture of Chuck Norris, and they were like, ha ha ha. And like, no, that's actually Charette's.
You sure it wasn't Chuck Norris?
We never saw him in the same room together, so you never know. An hourglass. The point of talking about Christian Kirk is because it's actually my channel, and I do the 49ers stuff. And Garrett is on, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about the Houston Texans passing offense. I went back and watched, Garrett, about 70 to 75% of the Houston Texans passing offense. I have some thoughts about that. And what y'all do. And it's interesting to me to see then what y'all did with the offensive line, because that very much ties into some of the issues I saw with the passing offense and where they want to go, I think. But we're first going to be talking about one former Texan who is now a 49er in Christian Kirk. So, Garrett, I want to run this by you. I went and watched all 438 snaps of Christian Kirk, and I wrote up my scouting report. I want to see if you think what you think as far as how accurate this is. And if you saw anything different in his time with y'all and your experience covering the team. So
real quick, do you mind if I interject and just, for anybody that's confused, I did connect my socials. This is Johnny Dells, who is a football. You're fine. He's a football savant. We've been friendly over the years and done a couple lives together. But we got a chance to meet up in person at the Senior Bowl and evaluate a lot of guys there together as well. But, I am a guest on his show. He is a 49ers film analyst, a guru. And we talked about getting my insight on Christian Kirk and then also some carryover. But yeah, so if you're wondering, that's what it is. My name is Garrett Williams. I'm Houston Stressans, Texans commentator if you're on Dell's side. So y'all are lucky to have this guy, but I'm glad to be on the show. Sorry to kind of I know there's a lot going on
I
there.
get my ADHD kicks in and I scoot right along and forget about things. So yeah, Garrett is a good friend. We hung out at the Senior Bowl for a week. It was awesome. It was very privileged to be able to hang out with you for a week and enjoy your friendship and your eyes on the football field. And
even though you're taking all my crushes, my Senior Bowl crushes, all good.
Look. They could go anywhere. What's most likely going to happen is they're all going to go to the Chiefs, and we're both going to be irritated. It was so Garrett, let everybody know from my side where they can find you, some of your socials, all that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much on everything: X, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. It's either at Texans Commenter or at Houston Stressans. I have a website, houstonstressans.com. I write articles. I got, if you're a Texans fan, I have like a free agency tracker. I have like a draft visit tracker. I have like a cap calculator, all kind of fun tools there. So yeah, I'm pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and plus what I love about the Houston Texans, they've pretty much become the 49ers Gulf. So they're the 49ers on the Gulf because you've taken so many of our people, different personnel and coaching staff and front office, all sorts of stuff. I love DeMeco Ryans. I absolutely love him. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I wish he would have stayed in San Francisco for 10 years. But alas, he moved on and has been doing a great job there with the Texans. I know y'all are getting probably a little anxious. You want to see the team make that next step. And it's felt like for the last couple of years, the offense has been kind of holding things back on that from really being like a top 4 team or a top 2 team that is there representing in the Super Bowl. But you let an offensive weapon go in Christian Kirk. And so my scouting report was number 1, dynamic speed. He can run away from almost anyone. If he's even, he's leaving. Mostly reliable hands. Isn't afraid to make catches in traffic and go over the middle. Faster than quick. And if the defense doesn't leverage him right, he can burn them. Brings stellar speed to the offense. Biggest thing about him was speed. He can be a good catch and run guy. He can be somebody who run through the defense, take the top off the defense. But they played him, it looked like, in 2 different roles. And that was fascinating for me to watch. The cons was struggles consistently working through contact. Feet aren't as quick as his speed and can tip routes, taking too long to throttle down against good corners. Smaller frame doesn't shield quarterbacks from off target or poor decision throws. Not a separation creator in tight coverage.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I've always thought he's an underrated player, and I was excited when we got him. Obviously, I believe we traded like a 7th round pick. He was a potential, cap cut, and that was Casario's, trademark way to circumvent the waiver wire. But I forget the exact cap hit he was for us, but I believe for y'all, what is he, 8 million or 9 million?
6 million.
6 million. So y'all got him at a much better deal. So that alone needs to be factored into the equation. But overall, I had high expectations for him. I was like, okay, this is the veteran slot receiver for CJ Stroud, the security blanket, the guy he can trust. We bring in Nick Caley, which is the EP or the New England Patriots type offense where slot receivers, they call him the adjuster, where they have a lot more freedom than what they had in the Slowick or Shanahan scheme, meaning, they can definitely more options routes, choice routes. They can adjust the route more often based off of alignment and coverage. And the big thing on that is the receiver has to see it the same way as the quarterback. And it's almost like you're anticipating on both ends what it's going to be. And if the receiver sees it one way or doesn't see it and doesn't do what the quarterback does, it can look catastrophic. Like early in the year, not only with Kirk, but a lot of receivers with CJ Stroud. I felt that he saw it the right way and the receivers didn't. But as the casual fan sees, like, oh, what a terrible throw. But anyway, so I was thinking that he would be great at that just from being a veteran. But as you alluded to, the vertical speed, and they talked about it when they acquired him, like when DeMeco Ryans consistently was asked about him, like he's a great vertical threat from the slot. which I think is great, but that's not, like, looking back in hindsight, like, that's not what we need in this offense. If you think about New England Patriot offenses, which obviously before we didn't know exactly how the offense would look with Kaylee, but you think about Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, you think about grimy, tough, they're not known as like real fast, but they're pretty good separators from quickness and stuff like that. And so you kind of mentioned like he really wasn't a lot of that. He did do well, like on a lot of, third and short, fourth and shorts where they would motion him and, get him on the run.
He looked like the primary motion guy. I want to say it seemed like 70 to 80% of the passing game motions, he was the guy in motion. So they were using him very much as a chess piece to change strength, to change leverage, to change matchups. And so that was fascinating to watch. It was like, he was just motion happening there. You could find him. Like he was the guy. Like once you kind of figured out where he was, you could find him. It also felt like to me that they want a different body type at receiver. When you look at their other three top receiving targets, when you have Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins and Xavier Hutchinson, all three of those guys are much larger framed guys.
They're all ex-receivers
than Christian Kirk, right? So, I can even pull it up from the All-22 that you can clearly see a size difference between these guys. Here's Kirk, and then here you have Higgins. That is a clear size difference. You have Nico Collins here, and you have Xavier Hutchinson here. These are all 6'3", 6'4", big-bodied guys, and it just felt like for him, they didn't. It was like that CJ Stroud felt much more comfortable in tight coverage going to those guys because they were bigger framed, they were bigger bodies, larger catch radius.
Or Dalton Schultz, really.
Or Dalton Schultz. Like you look at those four guys, those are all big frame, big bodied, big catch radius guys, and Christian Kirk was not that. So when I say that some of the things I've seen this offseason from the Texans make me go, okay, I think that that plays into some of what they're trying to address in the passing game is there were so many throws where it looked like either Davis Mills or CJ Stroud did not trust that their protection was going to hold up. And they sometimes weren't even trying to process what was going on post snap. It was snap and then immediately try and get the ball out because they wanted that ball out within 2 seconds.
Oh, you could see it from training camp on, given the O-line the year before, and then them knowing that I think that their hands were tied to like being able to fully revamp the O-line, and they kind of got sniped in the draft. So they kind of knew the personnel still wasn't great, but they knew at the very least they could mitigate pressure by drilling it into these quarterbacks, get the ball out quick. The offense was actually pretty good as far as pressure rate, but then you go look at pass block win rate, it was terrible. But then you don't see a lot of sacks. It's because you can't get to the quarterback if the ball's out in 2 to 2.5 seconds. So that was a big thing. And then if that is drilled into you, you can also hurry up the quarterback and they can make some bad decisions. So just wanted to add that to that.
Well, no, you're 100% right, and I have a great example of this happening, and why I think just during the year that Christian Kirk did not get the kind of targets that you would expect. So hopefully this won't bring too much pain to you. This is going to be against the Jaguars early in the year. People give me a hard time because they always say I say Jaguars.
Jaguars.
But here, Jacksonville, they're showing heavy pressure, and you have Christian Kirk here. He's going to be a hot. They got him on a little snag route here.
Do you know the down and distance here?
I don't remember the
Imagine down and it's distance. 3rd and long at a guess, but go ahead. You're good.
So Davis Mills is in here. I would like to see Kirk cross the face of his defender. I mean, they're showing you heavy pressure. If
is this
back
the pick?
Out of this? Yeah. If they back
this
out
is
of this,
the first drive. This is like 3rd and.
It was very early on.
This is a great play by the safety. I'm gonna let you finish. Sorry.
So no, so the back end's got to figure out this little switch release. They're gonna have a switch release on this, but if I'm Davis Mills, I'm a little upset at Kirk here because I'm saying I want you to cross this guy's face and put you between him and me, so that he has no angle to get through to the ball. And you see Kirk's just going to come up and hit a little snag. If I'm Davis Mills, I'm wanting him over inside a little bit more. And you can see Mills is saying, I got to get this ball out. They're bringing pressure. Now, this is a little bluff blitz. This is something that you've seen a number of teams run over the years where they'll drop these two inside guys out. They try and take away those quick slants. But because this smaller frame, when he sits in here, he doesn't have enough oomph, enough body to block this out. And because you got these guys backing out, he doesn't want to go to Hutchinson on the backside. So he's saying, I got my quick snag here. I'm going to go there. And this guy just jumps the pass and it gets
I believe it's Jarrian Jones. So to me, one, that is an insane play by him. And if you watch the mic'd up, we've been doing this. And to me, this is the right decision. Like, it may or may not be blitz. It seems like it. Regardless, you have Kirk with the guy 10 yards off running a 5-yard route. You should be able to hit that.
And long.
Yeah, you should be able to hit that, and that would be a good gain. But he's mic'd up after the game. Jarrian Jones said, as soon as I saw that, I knew they were going to go there, so I jumped it. So one, it was kind of an instinctual / gamble by him. But two, if you go back to the beginning and you kind of go through it, to me, I agree with your sentiment about maybe becoming more flat and getting more square and getting between you and the defender. But to me, it's like, hey, you need to be thinking hot. It looks like a blitz. You are the hot right here. So it's simply awareness. Get your freaking head around. Right now, he's looking at you. Yeah. If you turn your head around, you can make a play on the ball and come back to it. And so that's where, when I talked about being frustrated, thinking that he would be this great security blanket, the adjuster position, having the ability to make decisions, it wasn't there. But you throw in like a savvy slot veteran that's like used to knowing when you're hot and like the little details. Okay, I need to look real quick, rather than wait to get to my spot, then turn around. So that's where it was tough. And then I will say, though, he did somewhat redeem himself in that Pittsburgh game, made a lot of big plays.
Yes.
And that's when him and CJ kind of finally were on the same page. But really, he was most effective running like deep corner routes and things like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the underneath option routes. So
yeah, so that's where I felt like he had two different roles. So if I go back, I'm just going to use this as basically a template to draw on. It felt like they had one as the gadget role. So here he is. And when I say gadget role, this is a very Shanahan thing, where one classic thing that Shanahan does is, one, that gadget role is going to be constantly in motion. They're going to move you back and forth because they might stack you over this receiver. They may stack you over this receiver. They're going to change it and move it around. And one of Shanahan's favorite concepts is running this choice concept. So he's going to run a corner route and then a choice route underneath it. And so I saw Kirk as the guy running that so many times. In the Shanahan offense in the 49ers, that's Christian McCaffrey is running those most of the time. Sometimes you would get Deebo Samuel back in the day. This year you saw some George Kittle running those, and he's run those over time. People remember back to the Saints game 2019, the big catch and run Kittle had at the end of that game to set up a game-winning field goal. That was on this concept. It was a choice concept, corner route plus choice route on that side. So if I was to look at Kirk's like underneath his gadget roll route tree, it was a lot of quick to the flat. It was choice routes. It was going to be shallow crossing routes. And by quick to the flat, I mean drag. And then it was going to be delay routes out here where it has the option to sit down or keep moving. These were the majority of his routes, and all of them do have sight adjustments on them in different ways. So like, for example, the drag route can become a drag China against certain coverages. So it can break outside, break back in. The choice obviously can be go in or out. Your shallow crossing route can sit down. It can come across the field. And then this is called a through route. So it's a couple of yards deeper. It can turn into an over route that sits over the middle. It can run through the defense, or it can bend over the first underneath Mike. And so this was very much his route tree from the gadget roll. And then outside that, it was going to be deep corners from inside, kind of seam fades. It was going to be far pylon routes. It was going to be post routes. And then it was going to be seam routes. So this was kind of his route tree, is what I saw from all the different snaps, that you didn't really have a lot in this area. You had some, but it didn't go well, like this play. And some of it was because understanding leverage or being able to throttle down. This would be a perfect example. This was another play. He left CJ Stroud out to dry a little bit. They're going to run a little pull shallow here. So this is going to be a pull shallow under route, and then a pull basic is what they call this in the Shanahan McVay system. So you're trying to put this underneath guy in a vertical stretch. Well, they're running Minter's version of cover 4 palms here. So they're going to end up matching the number 1 as he goes vertical. Both these guys are going to take the number 1 unless the number 1 breaks out. And then at that point, the safety is going to eye to the number 2, and they're going to work this to the 3. These 200 guys are going to be to the 3. What you end up having here is if he's going to run this, he needs to stem this a little bit more inside and attack this safety's inside shoulder, try and get this guy to turn, because this backside safety isn't involved over here. What they do is versus this look, they're going to keep these guys as a 3/2, and they're creating kind of a cone to the weak side. So this safety has to protect against anything coming down the inside of that hash. And so I'd like to see him attack the inside of that hash and force this safety to turn and then break in on his basic, understand the coverage that he's facing. And what he ends up doing is he tries to split these guys because he's trying to grab both of them. Well, if you run outside this hash on a vertical, that's this corner's job. This guy's just going to basically trail as inside help, but he's going to eye to make sure Nico Collins doesn't break vertical on this. So in this, he doesn't set that up. You can see the safety's flat-footed. He's angled back in now. He says, I'm not going to break on anything there. And then he takes forever to throttle down, and then rounds this off. This needs to be a flat cut, not a speed cut. And so the safety jumps this as he's eyeing towards CJ Stroud, and he runs the route for him. So these are some of the issues that I saw that said, okay, when they want to get the ball out quick and they feel like they're going to get pressure, they didn't trust Kirk. Like he didn't feel comfortable. He wasn't a safety blanket.
But he was supposed to be, which is crazy. Like if you're the slot receiver, you're supposed to be. But the only guy we trust in that role was Dalton Schultz, and that's why he was our leading receiver.
Yeah,
so frustrating.
And Dalton Schultz there were so many times I was like, the coverage says that Stroud should be going to Kirk's side, but he's ending up quicking
didn't trust him
straight to Dalton Schultz on the other side. And so there was moments I'm like, well, he's kind of open and it's versus zone. He didn't do anything great. Like he's playing the role. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's not getting a target because clearly they feel more comfortable. Just if I got to get the ball out in under 2 seconds, it's going to Dalton Schultz. It's going to Nico Collins. I don't know how many times it felt like Stroud was forcing the ball into Nico Collins.
But did you feel like Schultz and Nico, them being forced was because he couldn't trust these other guys, like we're talking about with Kirk, like not running the route with these details and that was my observation. And Jaden Higgins too, like he's great, but he also like in this offense with having these side adjustments and whatnot, I felt like he didn't trust a lot of guys. And so, yeah, but then maybe
he definitely didn't. I will say it felt more like if I make this throw a little off target, because that happened early in the year. I think it was
they can bail you out.
Was it Baltimore? I want to say he threw 2 picks.
Baltimore was a good game. I don't.
It was one of the early games. It was Baltimore or Jacksonville. The first meeting against Jacksonville.
It was Jacksonville, and one of the picks was Christian Kirk's fault. He was running a corner route, keeping it high, and Stroud tried to throw him back down low, and he stayed high. And so he has a bad feel for space like that. Like that one,
I will say that was just an off-target throw. That Stroud needed to put that out more because the guy who picked it was an underneath corner and they were trying to high low, and he needed to put that ball out there a little bit more. And so it was a little bit off of a throw. And so I felt and
that one too, another point that you had made, it all started with Kirk's route. And you mentioned like him getting rerouted. He was, and a lot of the receivers too, like they were like, he was in the slot running a corner. He got washed 5 yards outside, and now his route is so compressed and there's no space. And it was like that all the time. Like he got way off his landmark, either fight back way inside or lean on the guy. But you know, so I could see how some thought that was underthrown. I thought there was some onus on Kirk, and you could see after the play on the live copy and the end zone copy where Stroud's like looking at Kirk like, bro, what are you doing? Like, no, you're not doing what I want you to do. So,
I mean, he definitely struggled working through contact. You're going to see this here. Here he is against the Ravens, and you see this. He just is getting ridden. No separation, no fight through the contact. And so, you know, if I'm CJ Stroud and I'm in that situation, yeah, I want to go to those other guys. It felt like there comes a point where quarterbacks can stop trusting. If I don't make a perfect throw, you won't protect me. Like you need, there's some guys, it's like when you let go of that ball, worst case scenario, offensive pass interference. And it felt like that there were some times that in those roles that's where Kirk was losing some trust. And then that's why it was just, if I know I got to get the ball out in 2 seconds, it's like saw with the Jacksonville pick. It's like you had earlier in the year, you had some of these games where it was like, okay, if I know a guy, worst case scenario, it's offensive PI. They got a big frame. They're going to shield these defenders from the ball. I know if I throw it to Nico, worst case scenario, it's an incompletion. If I throw it to Dalton, worst case scenario, it's an incompletion.
Yeah.
And so those were some of the issues I felt like were coming up. Now, to me, when he was used in that speed slot role, it was dynamic. So here, this is
home run hitter. It's boomer bust,
This is classic Shanahan, McVay, really more Shanahan. This goes back to Mike Shanahan. You're going to run this little stretch.
The pylon route.
You fake a stretch, you roll out, you then oftentimes have this slide concept coming back the other way. You run a corner route from the slot guy, then you usually have a drag over here, but you bring these guys around and you get a 3-level stretch here against this on the rollout. You get the defense rolling one way. Well, what you do when the defense starts overreacting to your counter, right? Or your counter is you have a counter to the counter. And so you run this corner post. So you fake like you're going to run a corner route and you run this post route. And this is where it was like, okay, this is what he should be in here, and why I say he can start fitting in the Shanahan scheme, because now you're saying, okay, we got this rollout out here, and people have said, well, because I showed this play yesterday and somebody said, well, can Brock make that throw? And I'm like, look, Jimmy G made this throw. I remember
he's so open, even if you underthrow, you can still throw him back shallow too.
Yeah. I mean, Jimmy G's threw a touchdown to George Kittle running this same play against the Packers. I think it was week 12, week 11. It was in November in 2019. We blew him out like 38 to 12 or something like that, or 19. And so you're going to see him. He's getting the safety turned, and then he breaks back towards the post, and whoop, and that speed is just dynamic. So you can lay it out literally anywhere in this area, and your receiver can go get that. And that's pretty much kind of what happens here, and he gets a face mask penalty too. So he sets him up at the 1.5 yard line. That's the kind of stuff that you go, okay, now you see what he can do. And the 49ers did not have that at all. They didn't have speed from anywhere on the field pretty much in their passing game.
I want to say this real quick. So I think, and I was thinking this, like, and it's coming up in this conversation, to me, like, they wanted him to be this tough, savvy over the middle slot, and he wasn't. And so I honestly feel like, and if you look at his snap splits over the years, he's played the Z role, which is, about 20 to 30% slot, 70% outside. He's also played heavy slot, 50 to 60% at times. To me, he is a Z receiver. If you look at the vertical threat, the vertical push, the speed. So I don't know what y'all's current, wide receiver room looks like. I know y'all have Pearsall, who seems like he'd be more of the slot. If he plays,
Pearsall's more of a Z. That's where that's where they've had him at, or flanker, and so he's the guy they want to make. They want to have making tough catches in traffic. So they've asked him to put on weight. That was one thing that they wanted for him in that role. They also they want their X and Z to also be able to be man coverage beaters. That was one of the problems they had with Deebo Samuel, was that Deebo Samuel was not a man coverage guy. When the Chiefs went man coverage in the Super Bowl, Deebo disappeared. And because he couldn't separate versus man, and especially press. And some of it had to do with his arm length. He doesn't have really long arms. And so they like long arms in their X receivers. Brandon Ayuk had famously, he's 6 foot, but had 33.5-inch arms. Mike Evans, who they just signed, has 35-inch arms. The guy they drafted before Brandon Ayuk to be the X receiver, Dante Pettis, was 6 foot, had 32.5-inch arms. Like, they want long arms from their X receivers. They want big catch radius from their Z's. So, Ricky has a huge catch radius, and they want a guy who's going to be able to catch and run over the middle without anything. Jacob Cowing is their idea of what a speed slot guy is. And I think Christian Kirk is brought in to insulate that position, because Jacob Cowing had a pulled hamstring last year in training camp, didn't play a single snap all year because he kept re-aggravating his hamstring. And so And when he went down, they had no speed from the slot, none. And so, you don't like, we didn't have this ability. So here, he's just there. The protection holds up. Mills is going to find Kirk, and he's going to then he can take it off and run. He's got skills with the ball in his hands to go turn a short play into a big play. Like, he's got dynamic speed. You're going to see him here. He's the motion guy. He makes catches without fear that he's going to be on a deep out here on a sail concept. So, they're running this sail concept with 3 out here. This is an adjustment route. He's got to sit down versus zone, and he's supposed to keep going versus man. So, he comes out here about to get popped by the corner. He still makes the catch out there on the sideline.
So I will say, like, some of his bigger plays were in scramble drill like that. Like, that was somewhat of a scramble drill extending but while he was already going vertical, and like the ones you saw in Pittsburgh were both just like that as well.
Yeah. Here, this one, I know Texans fans, you love your CJ. This is just a miss here. Because he's gone.
Oh yeah.
He's gone. Now CJ's got a guy in his face. He's getting whacked. But oh man, that's a touchdown that isn't there. That's where he
go back on that. I'd also like him to keep that high too. I mean, maybe the ball took him back down, but he needs to keep that high.
Well, a lot of it is
the ball's already out. The ball's already out.
Can't step into it, right? So
the ball's already out when he breaks.
This is what I mean. Like, some of their protection woes led to these things.
Could he have gotten to this ball? Because the ball's already out.
I mean, he's running as hard as he can. It was just too far out there, and again, that's CJ Stroud is, when in doubt, I'm going to leave that far because I don't want it to be underthrown, because I don't trust you that you're going to keep that from being a pick.
Because he's not a bigger, he's not a guy who's going to fight back to the ball and be aggressive. Yeah.
Now, if we want to talk a little bit into the philosophy of y'all's offense, this is a play that we'll both talk about Kirk, but why there was a change from 2024 to 2025. So here's a perfect example. So this is normally, old Mike Leach mesh concept here, where you would see, where's the other receiver? So you're going to have a little hook over the middle here, 2 shallow crossing routes. Normally from this running back, what you're going to see is either another route that comes up and is going to be then trailing in here to create double mesh action, or they'll bring him out this other side on a rail route, or this side on a rail route. That's usually what happens. And they're going to run a corner route off the side here. So from Kirk, that's normally what happens with this play. But here's what they started to do this year as opposed to previous years. So they're going to see these guys are walked up. And so what do? They say, running back, now you're responsible for whoever comes through the B gap, because we're going to kick this guard out and we're going to kick this tackle out. And so the center has got to then pick up the first inside threat, and you're going to pick up the second inside threat in case they come with a double blast. So the running back now is staying into block. And so instead of being a 5-man pattern, it is a 4-man pattern. And this is what you saw a lot of times with what the change was this year with Kaylee, is they said, we're going to allow the quarterback, we're going to allow our system to make adjustments to now account for potential rushers. And the key is, see, now you have this guy switches over. And again, normally he's going to be running a rail, but he's got to pick up a threat from the inside. And so he's going to stay in there to block. And so there you see him, boom, he's stepping over because he sees this coming down, right? So instead of being out here on a rail, which in the Shanahan system, they don't do this. They don't keep on this play, this running back into block. They're going to keep that running back. This is going to be McCaffrey. They're going to keep him on a rail, and he's on a hot. So if this guy comes, what happens is the quarterback's going to hit this rail right away, because you have no way to play that except for TJ Watt coming off the edge. So this is the difference that you saw between Slowick and Kaylee in your offense, running the same play, but now you're doing something different. And instead, you're going to say, we're going to block this up, and we're going to go for the home run hit over the middle or on the outside, because they're dropping these defensive tackles in. And this is one thing that teams started to do, is they're going to say, okay, we're going to show pressure. We're simulating this pressure. We keep a sixth guy into block, so you have a guard blocking air, and we're going to drop guys out And so now these shallow crossers are mostly taken away. And so now your option is this home run shot.
This is Titus Howard out there blocking air.
I think that's Titus Howard, yeah. And so, but they
block it up.
They block it up, and now you get Kirk on this corner route versus I can't remember the guy's name. It wasn't Joey Porter. It wasn't Asante Samuel.
They picked on him. All of our yards in that game were on him.
Yeah, it was.
But what I like about this is they were finally on the same page. Like Stroud is wanting to throw him high, and he adjusts to it. He goes high.
Yeah,
because technically that can be considered covered if he's right there in his hip. But if you throw him up and high and away from the defender, he's open.
Well, and this is what I was meaning. If he's even, he's leaving. There wasn't a corner I saw that could keep up with him stride for stride on his long speed. But on this,
you can't throw towards the sideline and shallow because a DB turns around as a pick.
Yeah,
you have to throw it up and high and over. It's a pretty tough throw and catch, but the receiver has to realize, okay, this guy's on my inside. I have to keep it high. So that's something they eventually started to click on.
Yeah, and it really, you started to see it in this game. This is how I see the 49ers trying to use him, is more as this speed slot guy, where you can really affect things. And here, let me double check. Oh, okay, so this is really interesting because this is a new sort of way that teams have been running dagger over the years. So normally you were going to run dagger, you'd keep this guy over here, you're going to run down the seam, you'd clear this out, and then you'd run a big dig, or as in the Shanahan system it's called a dover, a deep over route in behind it. Well, now what you have is a lot of times this safety against these trips looks like this. What they're going to do is they're going to cross key and pick up the number 3 on the other side. So how you clear this safety out, in what they do is they say, okay, then because that's going to happen, you're going to match this guy. And so if this guy's keying this way, you got to match and protect against the outside. So what you do now is you say, I'm going to run this guy on a far pylon route. I'm going to run him this way, clear it out, and you're going to get this big dig in behind it. So, and if they don't respect that, if they don't read out that cross key, like you're going to see this, Ramsey, I think he's a little late here. He's squatting on this dover. And now you got Kirk running out. And to put this in perspective, earlier in the game, they had run this. Kirk ran them off, and they hit the dover to Jaden Higgins.
Yep.
And so now you have that safety squat, and now you can launch this out there, and nobody can catch him. When he's on the run, he's just got that dynamic speed. So this is how they see the 49ers.
We didn't get to maximize that because of pass protection too. I mean, that was almost 3 seconds there. I mean, Stroud had to step up and have time. So that's a big element too, as far as us not maximizing his skill set.
Yeah, and again, so it like I said, it came down to a lot of times the pass protection wasn't holding up. They were trying to work through the protections, and so sometimes those protections were leaving Stroud out to dry because he had no quick answers. And so if the protection didn't hold up and the ball had to come out quick, he had no good options, and it was an unfortunate thing that would happen every once in a while. Here, there was just some missed opportunities against the Broncos. He's running a seam route here. This is one I'm like, oh my gosh, if you can hit this throw down the seam, this is a touchdown, because this is old 49er Talanoa Hufanga out here. He ain't catching Kirk. I can tell you that. Huff does not have the long speed, but it's just off the mark.
He does a good job too of bending it flat away. That's a tough window too, though, with that backer trailing behind him. That's a tough.
Yeah. Now, what you'd like to see is, because the middle of the field is so wide open, how they teach
layer that. Is that Mills or is that Stroud?
This is Mills. So, this how Shanahan would teach this. He's going to say you're going to attack this safety and then bend this at this point inside and work to space. That's usually how they teach these, is work to space. And so that's what he does here. He's working, but Mills is expecting him to keep. So
he could have kept it. He could have kept it a tad higher and let Mills throw him back down. The thing here is this ball needs to layer it up and over the backer with touch. That's a tough throw, but this ball has too much zip on it.
Well, if he's going to throw one ball, it's got to be out here. Lead him into space. If it's going to be a 2 ball, you got to leave it out here. But you got a big time heavy hitter,
or you can throw it in between those two. Just kind of, it's like a mix of the two. That's the tough throw, the layering.
Yeah, and so if I'm
but yeah, I agree though. Like the option is 1 or 2. Either throw it firm up or soft and flat.
Yeah, and work to space on this. You want that quarterback to throw it right between the hashes or right, inside that hash. Don't be throwing it outside the hash, because that's where your guy can get it. If you hit him here, and he's going to be gone. Like, he splits these safeties, it's a touchdown. This is how the 49ers are going to use him. Too many teams were matching us with too high with Tampa, and we didn't have speed.
Attack the middle of the field.
They were fine with guys like Nick, what's his butt here?
Bolton running the pole.
Matching down the middle. And this was the Seahawks too. Ernest Jones, they were fine with him matching guys down the middle. So
that last play too, it kind of speaks to my bigger point. It's like, even with, like, they were just never on the, like, it's like little fine details between quarterback and receiver just barely being off from an incomplete pass to a potential touchdown.
Yeah, that was a lot of their kind of disconfigurations, I guess. Looking here, this is what I'm excited for, what he can bring to the 49ers, because here he's going to be in the slot. And we, again, like I was saying, you have Nick Bolton here. Teams like the Seahawks were fine with Ernest Jones matching the number 3 down the middle, and they'd keep these safeties high and just kind of widen and then come down and attack anything on, in that intermediate between the hashes and the numbers. Like, they were fine with that. And this really congested the 49ers offense, because so many of their throws really happen in these areas. Like, this is the money zone for them, is just outside the hashes, or just outside the hashes to the other just outside the hash. That's where they love to attack. And we just couldn't threaten that. Well, here you now have a guy that's going to run vertical. And once these safeties see we got Bolton trying to run with Kirk, what ends up happening is they're both going to then turn and pick up Kirk, right? Because once he gets past this point, they're getting on their horse and they're saying, okay, we got to squeeze this, because Bolton is going to be left out to dry if they try and match him with Kirk. And so now you get these areas are wide open.
Curls and digs, yeah.
Like, these
and then was
are
his
open.
Again, though, on this play was his release. It felt like he got washed inside a little bit.
He got washed a little inside, but they're okay with that. They want
he
these
still did his job.
To aim for the near safety, work to spaced over the middle, and they really want him to ride this hash. That's really where they want to be, is right down the hash.
And it's about getting there quickly to affect those safeties more than anything.
Exactly. You just got to get vertical as quickly as you can. You got to get on your horse and get vertical so that you can push these guys, and then you get these throws, right? Because you have pulled off 3 defenders for 1 receiver.
So that's a good point too. While he wasn't the most productive, he still, plays like this allowed other things to open up. So I mean, you have to factor that in.
Throw went too high. Went too high.
Who is that?
That's Stroud.
But
that's Xavier Hutchinson.
Yeah. So I wonder though too if that's, I mean, a lot of the time on these digs, guys throttle when they shouldn't have, and vice versa. Regardless.
And so here you're going to see the exact same thing. I pulled these because I was like, okay, I want to show 49ers fans, like, it didn't matter who this was. If they ran Tampa, then these safeties immediately bailed when they saw Kirk coming down the middle and their mic matched up.
He's occupying 3 defenders by doing that.
So you can see this safety's turn to run. This guy's turn to run. This safety's now curling to run, right? All from Kirk coming out here. We didn't have this last year. Like, the 49ers, you put on their tape, this doesn't happen for anybody. Like, nobody on the field.
Top off the defense with the slot.
This is that speed slot that can take the top off of a defense. When people hear that all the time, you need this guy that can take the top off the defense. Here's a visual representation of what that term means.
2 safeties and a backer out of the picture.
Yeah, and so now you've got wide open. You're creating space for your guys to operate. You have 4 receivers on 4 defenders who are all playing zones underneath. You can stretch those zones underneath. You can stretch them vertically. You can do so many things when you have a guy who now can do that, and you can get just enough time. And this is where the play action game comes into play. And it felt like some of the Texans' play action game wasn't married really well, for different reasons. But that's the kind of thing you get that's really interesting going forward. And so I'm excited about Charlie Kirk.
Christian Kirk. You said you're going to say
I did it. I told you I was going to do it at some point. That I'm excited for Christian Kirk in that sense, that he brings an element with that we have not had. Honestly, going back to The closest thing we've had to it in recent time is like Ray McCloud that the 49ers had a couple of years ago. 49ers fans will recognize that name and they'll go, oh gosh, Ray. Yeah, like this is a better version of Ray McCloud for them. This is what they thought Danny Gray would be when they drafted him, and then he's done nothing. This is what they want Jacob Cowing to be, but because he got hurt all last year, they didn't have that at all. And so now you get to insulate that position. And the thing I do like is that he's got a year of working that gadget role. And what I think the 49ers have done
give you some
this
there.
Free agency is, well, this period has been all about multiple position insulator guys. So last year, because they were very much the last couple of years they were into specialist roles. It was like, we don't need.
I just want to say real quick, Johnny, I'm sorry, but we got to do this more often, dude. This guy is a savant. I know the Niners guys know, but Texans fans, this is incredible. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just had a moment like this.
No, you're good.
I'm loving this.
Well, so like they had guys who they were going to say, okay, we want run-stopping defensive tackles who are only going to play first and second down. And then they would have a specialist third down package.
Yep.
Right? So like last year, how this looked for the 49ers is you had Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, Alfred Collins, CJ West.
Mm-hmm.
Those are your 4 run-stopping defensive tackles, and they emphasized those because they were so bad against the run. And when Jordan Elliott went down in 2024, their run defense just tanked. So they said, we need multiple guys who can do this, who are run-stopping guys, long arms, big bodies. That's what they like from these guys. So they go out and they make sure that area is stacked with that. So and they said, we don't worry about the pass rush because we're going to earn the right to rush the passer. And so when we get into pass rushing situations, we're going to kick Garrett Williams inside because he played some 3-tech there at Georgia. And so we think he can be a really good pass rushing 3 technique. And we got Yetur Matos, who we're going to have line up and rush from the inside, because he can play what Charles Omenihu had done, what Arden Key had done for them in those. Well, Eric Armstead was the Garrett Williams, right? He could play base down defensive end, and then he would kick inside and play pass rushing 3-tech. And so they'd have Yetur Matos as this kind of NASCAR package defensive end who can come in and rush from the inside. You get Bosa on the outside, and you get Bryce Huff, the super speed rusher guy on the outside. So you have a pass rush specialist package where you have 2 guys who are just really, really good at their roles in rushing the passer, and that's Yetur Matos and Bryce Huff. You have 4 guys who's really good at stopping the run. Well, the problem was Nick Bosa got hurt, and so now he's down. He tears his ACL.
Those guys to do more than their specific role.
And then Yetur Matos has got a knee issue in training camp. They've got to nurse him in practice all year long. They only want him in on third downs. He can't play base defense.
We got you, Arthur. We'll get to it soon.
The
point I'm sorry. I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Well, and so then you had Bryce Huff, who was a speed rusher, and then Garrett Williams goes down with a torn ACL. And now Bryce Huff is having to play base down defensive end, and he's terrible at that. He's a specialist speed pass rusher. So now you have, and Yetur Matos misses a little bit of time. Bryce Huff misses a little bit of time. So Garrett Williams can't rush from the inside. So now all of a sudden you're asking Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis to run pass rush packages. They didn't even practice all offseason and training camp because they were supposed to be first and second down guys. Now you're asking them to be third down guys.
And doesn't suit their skill sets.
And it doesn't fit their skill sets. When you have slot guys like Upton Stout, and then behind him, Chase Lucas. Chase Lucas was another slot guy, very much like Upton Stout. He wasn't the frame to play outside corner in what they did. They tried to do it the last game of preseason. It didn't go well. So you have 2 guys who are specialist slot guys. Well, when Renardo Green gets hurt and he's banged up a little bit, Darrell Luter comes in. Well, Darrell Luter, then he gets banged up. And now you're trying to run a 4th guy in who's your 6th defensive back, which was really a special teams ace. It was I'm totally forgetting. Saron Neal was their 6th defensive back. So what they did this year is they let Chase Lucas walk. And they said, okay, we don't need a specialist slot. Well, then they go and they get Hobbs from Green Bay, who had been with the Raiders in Green Bay. He was a guy who played 2 years on outside corner, and then he's played a couple years at slot. So he's somebody who can play inside and out. So their backup slot guy is also a backup outside guy. They want that fifth defensive back position to be able to play both spots.
Yep.
When at defensive line, they trade for Osa Odigizua, who is somebody who is a 3-down defensive tackle. He can play the run on first and second down. He can rush the passer on third down. They want a guy who's not a specialist first and second down or only pass rusher guy. So they've insulated these situations. Kirk is the same way. He's somebody who can insulate the gadget. He can insulate the speed slot. So what they've done is they said, we had so many injuries last year that derailed everything because we had specialists. And once we started losing specialists, we didn't have guys who could cross train. And so it was an very idyllic roster construction. If you stay healthy, you could have a dominant team, but they couldn't stay healthy. And they haven't been able to stay
y'all
healthy.
Also had, I mean, there's one thing about having depth and sustaining injuries, but y'all's level was just insane. I mean, y'all probably had that insulation, but I mean, no one would have survived that. But I will say too, with Kirk, I don't know. I kind of think, I'd already kind of thought this, and after the conversation we've had, like, to me, he kind of is a specialist. I mean, if he has to be, he is that vertical threat. He's not really a good underneath. I mean, he can do some of that. I mean, he's not terrible. So I would imagine that they use him in that role correctly. But to me, it's like boom or bust. He's either deep vertical, like we mentioned, the Dovers, or the through routes, like going through the seams in the middle, or, corner routes, or it's like, it's like right at the line of scrimmage. And, another, I don't know if you showed any film. I guess you didn't show any film, but he was very effective at the motion where they would get him on 4th and short and 3rd and short with his speed. Now using his speed laterally from sideline to sideline, they would hit him on the run. So when man covers, the guy following him, and he would just beat the guy to the sideline, catch it, get 1 yard first down. He got a lot of those. These were very, very underrated plays. These are huge plays.
So you ask it, I got it. I got it right here.
I knew you had it, Johnny.
Here, he's going to start outside. They're going to motion him inside, get a coverage check. They get a bump over and a step down, right? So they're going to say, okay, now they're going to press here. So we know we got man coverage out here. And so what they're going to do is they're going to bring this guy in motion, and they're going to fake a little wide receiver reverse here, a little quick sweep, and then they're going to bring him across the formation,
race to the sideline.
And so you get the defense moving one way, and you get this guy who's got to work through all of this horizontal traffic to try and keep up with him on to the flat on the other side. We didn't have a guy who could do this. So even though throw's a little behind, he still gets in there for the touchdown.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're talking about.
That's taking advantage of his speed laterally. I mean, a speed slot can be used deep vertical or horizontally at the line of scrimmage. But I can go a little bit longer, but I mean, I know it's your show, but I would it seems like people, and I'm curious too, you watched a bunch of the Texans offense. So maybe your overall observations on the offense, how it was itself, and then just the, Earnhardt Perkins offense right there is a question from Arthur.
Yeah. So I'll try and wrap this up in about 3 minutes, because I know you got to go and we got to.
No, I mean, if we go over a little bit, it's fine. It's not a hard stop for me.
Okay. So EP versus the read and throw. I'm assuming you're meaning more of the Shanahan system, right? Which is, it's less. We're gonna adjust to everything protection wise, but more we're going to then build in lots of hots and lots of different answers versus different protections. So I'm going to try and pull this up here as an example of what you're looking for, of what the 49ers or what that Shanahan system does. So let me see if I find a really good example of it here. This is a decent example here on a spin pivot. This is a play that I know the Texans ran last year a number of times too. So what you have here is the 49ers and Shanahan. They're going to say, we're going to build in a couple hots here to our offense. So you have side adjustment, where what this route is going to do is if they're in bump man, you have an alert to a go route. If you see cover 2 out here, it's going to become a fade.
Shot.
So and I'll say it becomes a bump to a go route unless the corner bails right away, and then this is going to become a comeback route. So that's one of those side adjustments you're going to bring out there. So say they're showing heavy pressure, they got a bunch of guys walked up here, and you decide, okay, we're gonna now alert out here. I see press. The quarterback drops back and he sees these guys bail out of here, and they're running man and trying to help over the middle because they're trying to bait you into like this as a hot. what you do is you say, okay, now this becomes my answer versus that. So this wide out here becomes my answer for that kind of a situation. If they run cover 2, I have a way now I can pull this safety out of here, and I got a mic right here, and now I high-low him, or I'm gonna inside out. So we get a horizontal stretch of that mic versus cover 2. So it gives you an answer versus that. If they say, okay, we're gonna show something here, and we're gonna run cover 3, and they're gonna put this out here, this guy becomes a comeback route, and you get an outlet out here.
Yep.
So what you have is you have a deep corner out here who's got to stay on top of that as a potential go, and then you got to curl flat. And if you have a weapon out here, he's going to come down. So now I have an answer versus cover 3. If they roll coverage, if they say, okay, we're going to stay static, and I don't love this matchup out here on this corner, and this guy is down here bottom, I still have an ability to work a high-low on this hook guy in cover 3. So I can, because this route's gonna sit down. They're gonna have a curl flat out here. He's gonna sit down in between these guys. You're gonna high-low that guy. So you have lots of different answers versus everything. If they come with cover 0, you have a way to answer that. Cover 0, this route's gonna keep running to the sideline, and so the quarterback's gonna take it and boom, hit that hot right away. If they come with a zone blitz, you say, okay, well, they're going to bring a guy off the slot out here, and they're going to have this guy sit outside on that, and you got a corner right here. Well, this guy's got to get in here and work inside quick. And so you can hit this right away, and you can then have an answer versus a zone blitz on like a cover 3 zone dog. So that is very much how the Shanahan system will work. It's gonna do that to, like, say, we're gonna put the onus on the quarterback to identify these things, and we give you multiple answers versus multiple looks. The EP system has tended to be more about, we want to block everything up so that we can get the big play. We want explosives not to come from catch and run all the time. We want these to be from guys being open, and we have stressed the defense, and the defense will be less likely to blitz now because they're not saying we just have to win at the early line of scrimmage. We have to cover everything vertical. EP is a little bit more vertical than Shanahan. Shanahan's a little bit more horizontal. So generally, answers versus the blitz are going to be really quick, out, all the way. And it's going to be very horizontal in how it goes. So EP likes to say, well, if you're going to blitz me, I'm going to hit the home run shot. You're going to try and take a home run, I'm going to hit a home run. So that was kind of the struggles that they had, is adjusting that, of making sure that they could adjust for everything. And then if, like, say, teams came with a blitz on the opposite side of where they were going, they didn't always have a good answer. So if they showed pressure off the left and they came off the right and they backed out on the left, and you were thinking, I got this over here and we're going to block it up, suddenly then Stroud, it kind of runs into a dead end as far as answers. And it was like, oh gosh, what do we do here? And then he'd almost panic. And that led to a lot of negative plays very much early on in the season. I think y'all saw that, right? Like, there was a lot of times, there was a moment, everyone thought it was a safety. It wasn't a safety, but that would be a great example of something like that happening. It also then puts a little bit more onus on the coordinator having the right call at the right time. So he's got to, because if he gets fooled by the defensive coordinator, you can leave your quarterback with fewer answers. And this is where, maybe Kaylee starts to bring more of that McVay pure progression in, where he's saying, okay, now we're not going to ask him to identify and all these things, because teams are making it real muddy for him, to say we're going to allow pure progression. But the thing with Stroud is, the challenge will be, can he process at a range of somebody like Stafford or Brock Purdy? Because Brock is really, really good at that stuff. I remember we had a game against the Browns. There was a play. It was X Chevy Y over. X Chevy over Y flag was the play. And so Brock had to work 1 to 5 to the backside before, and it was only a 4-man rush before Myles Garrett was coming around the hump, and it was a pure progression play. And so he goes 1, 2, 3, 4 and hits Juszczyk at 5 for a 5-yard gain, but it was within 3 seconds because Myles Garrett beat Trent Williams around the hump, because he's Myles Garrett and he beats everybody. So that's one of the challenges you have with that pure progression is can your quarterback work through to the fifth read, fourth read, fifth read within 2.5, 3 seconds. That's real tough. Not a lot of guys can do that. There is streamlining that happens. That's where the next growth for me to see CJ Stroud do would be is get it into where you are reactionary, like instinctually reactionary to what defenses are doing so that you can eliminate 1 and 2 with a simple glance. You say, okay, this guy was 1 step, that guy's 1 step. And on their within their first steps of the defense, you recognize 1 and 2 is gone. I got to get to 3. And that allows me then to get to 4 and 5. So it looks like it's 1, 2, 3, but it's actually 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, 5. And it works that way. That's the next step I think he's got to take if they're going to go that route. Because I think they've got to add some of that into the arsenal to be able to just get a few more answers and run into fewer dead ends. This is why the Bills ended up going more pure progression with Josh Allen, because Josh Allen was running into dead ends with some of this stuff, is that they were trying to do that and they wanted to hit the big explosives. They're almost relying on that. Well, Josh can create plays outside the pocket, outside the structure. If we can't hold up and if they have somebody come through and we can't hit it on the quick, Josh can create and he can do something. But you see in the playoffs, that becomes a dead end for them. And he was running into dead ends as far as his progressions. So the Bills started moving more pure progression. McVay started doing that more. Shanahan started to include more pure progression in there. I think this is the next avenue they got to go, because it's in a similar way. I think there's been an expectancy that CJ could create. And then when you start getting hurt and you start getting smacked in the face, when your protections don't hold up and there's negative plays that are happening, guys get a little gun shy and they can get a little spooky in the pocket. And it seemed like there were just too many moments like that with CJ. He can be a top 10 quarterback. He has all the physical tools. I think he has a good processor and he can see the field well. It's can you get to that point of being instinctual so we can bring in a heavy diet of that as well? Because I know Kaylee has it in the arsenal. It's can they do that? Can they blend these two? Because if you do, that's where that offense really starts to take the next step. But in the end, a lot of it is really helped by get your offensive line a little bit better and also establish the run a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things too, like you mentioned. Obviously it's all those factors, but it's also a new offense too, so you're having to get used to it. And so while you're getting used to it, you're also like being thrown into like the worst environment ever. What was I going to say? I had a brain fart there, but like just from you talking to it too, like it almost sounds opposite to what you would believe as far as the difference in the two systems, where the Shanahan system has more hots available and it's quicker underneath stuff, where you would think that the EP system was more methodical as far as underneath stuff, but it does sound like you're going to go for the home run. And it sounds like you're less reactionary to the defense, like or it sounds like you're the one trying to dictate what's going on. Just because they show a look, you can say, no, we still want to run this. And so it kind of does sound boomer bust. But the other thing too I would add is, this probably works a lot better with a good run game. Not an excuse, but I mean, I think this offense, for it to operate the way what you just described, you have to have a viable run game to, play off of that. But, obviously the run game for the Texans wasn't great, but the games where the run game works, I guess it's true for any offense. All of these big, deep shots worked, so that's something I think that can improve this year.
Yeah, and the EP system, if you just remember the roots of it, one, you're going back to the early 90s Giants. That's where, Earhart and Perkins, that's where they were the offensive coordinators, was the early 90s Giants. And it was a run, when in doubt, run the ball team, right? And so if you think back to Tom Brady's early Super Bowls, they were a run-first team, and they were a good defensive team. They didn't become a really pass-heavy team until they got Randy Moss. And then they became, we're going to throw it around the yard. But you just think back to the 2016 Super Bowl. I know that's like ancient history, but if we remember that, when Dan Quinn was trying to come with a lot of man coverage, different pressures, different man coverages, what were the routes that Tom Brady was throwing? It wasn't these quick to the flats. That's what he was doing versus Seattle. That was against a heavy zone team, right? Is work them deep, throw underneath, and just death by 1,000 cuts. When it came to the Falcons in that, and they were playing more man coverage, and I know it was very, very, very similar system, but Dan Quinn had seen what Tom did to the Seahawks before that, and he was like, we're not playing soft zone against this guy. What we're going to do is we're going to try and man up, and it was like corner routes to what's his butt? Edelman. Right. So he's throwing corner routes on those. They're getting pressure in their man coverage. He's throwing corner routes. He's throwing over routes. He's throwing big in breakers on these. Like these were the dagger shots to them. He's throwing seam routes to Gronkowski. Like that's what they're throwing in those situations, because that's what they were looking for. Is okay, you're gonna really put your guys in an island. We're not gonna try and take short because you're trying to take away short, because you say we're gonna get home in time. We're not gonna let you get home in time. So now you're hung out to dry deep. And so EP is a little bit more of that, and it wants to they want to attack more vertical.
Shanahan, they do say, Stroud says like all the time, this offense is death by 1,000 cuts. So like to me, like hearing that from you,
when it's well, okay. So I guess I'll put it this way: it's not necessarily. I don't necessarily mean home run shots. I meaning like if it's 3rd and 8, you're not going to throw a 6-yard slant route and have the guy and try and move this linebacker a little bit, so that you can hit.
You're throwing the crease and get 9 yards. You're not relying on yak or rack, which the Shanahan system was huge 9, on yak.
10, 12-yard hits on 3rd and 8. You know, you're not looking at that one, and so it's about first downs, but it's a different philosophy of it. Of I'm not trying to hit a guy on the move so that he can keep running and we can angle this guy over here. It's we're going to open this up and get that. And if you try and bring,
and that's where these bigger possession receivers come and play too, right? Like I'm throwing to a spot there, just catch the ball, as opposed to catch it and wiggle and break free after.
Right. They're just like secure the catch, then we'll run the ball next down. So it's a little bit different philosophy of how it, you know, they view this as, because I remember one of the big arguments and things that people would say about Brock Purdy for a long time was like, well, you know, they're converting all these 3rd downs, but like 80% of these throws are actually short of the stick. So this is his guys are converting these 3rd downs. And it's like, well, that's a big part of this offense. Like that's what they've done. They create space, and then that's the Bill Walsh thing, right?
Players to fit that.
You get athletes in space and they'll break a tackle. Like you when you get Christian McCaffrey and he's 6 yards short of the first down, if he's one-on-one and that defender is 2 yards in front of him, you're expecting him to break that tackle, because that's Christian McCaffrey out there. You're expecting him to break a tackle. You're expecting George Kittle to still get the first down. Like that's why you pay those guys. That's why they pay their guys who have the ball in their hands premium money, and they don't pay their offensive linemen. They don't invest in their offensive linemen. They invest in guys that they say, we put premium draft picks and premium money into guys who have the ball in their hands. That's their philosophy of it. And that goes into roster construction. The EP system isn't as much like that. We want man beaters. We want zone beaters. We want guys who can do these things. They're going to make the catch, reliable hands. We don't always need you to catch it and run for 40 yards. Like we believe we're going to be able to get there every way. It's great if you get those shots built in. And that's where I think Kaylee has been an interesting mixed bag to watch. It's like you see the Shanahan McVay side, you see the EP side, they marry in. I think he's trying to figure out, where is Stroud going to be most comfortable in this? Is he going to be more on this side or more on that side? They've had to learn each other through this year. So if I'm a Texans fan, though, I'm looking at this and saying they're investing in the offensive line. I really, really like that. Now, whether or not that's going to fix it, that's a different argument. But I like that they're investing in that. You have the weapons. I think they let Kirk go because they have Jalen Noel. Like that dude is a speed slot guy. When I watched him at Iowa, I was like, okay, this kid, he was my second. I thought he was a late second is what I saw from him, kind of early 3rd. Jaden Higgins was the huge draft crush, but I was like, and I wouldn't be opposed to Noel either. And then Houston goes out and gets both those guys. They have his replacement on, so they didn't need to pay him $6 million. Jalen's going to be that next year. And I think he'll be more of a dedicated slot guy. I think what they really need is he
is a pretty similar skill set to Kirk. He's like a younger, better Kirk, essentially, in that sense, as far as the vertical threat with that 4.3 speed.
Exactly. So, but man, I appreciate it. I know we ran a little over time. I appreciate it. I'll get you out of here. 49ers fans, follow him. He's a great follow no matter what. If you're a fan of football, follow him. You will love how he's all over the socials. Just Google in Houston Stressans, put it in at any social media site you have, and you will find him. He does a great job. He's looking at different draft guys. We tend to all want the same guys out of the draft. It's a little irritating. But hopefully the 49ers get him and not the Houston Texans. For all the Texans fans, appreciate you being here. Appreciate you being in the chat and joining on the show.
I did have one question before. Are you good on time?
I'm good.
Okay, and let's try and do a home and home. I'll have you on my channel, and I can ask you. Yeah. People obviously want your insight from the Texans' perspective, but it's the last question on the EP offense. Like, I feel like when I think about it, I think about the Patriots, and I think about Welker and Edelman. Like, yes, we talk about the vertical threat slot, which is Kirk and Jalen Noel. Maybe Noel can be that, but like, I think they still need to add that veteran slot who's more of a bigger body. We talked about possession and just, not necessarily yak. The Edelman or Welker, just a guy who can get open real quick and, get the 5-6 yards. Like, to me, it's like they need to add a Keenan Allen, like a security. Like, we didn't have like that 5-yard intermediate veteran slot that was reliable. So I guess any thoughts on like that part of it too? Like maybe having 2 slots within that offense?
Well, when you look back to the body type of their slots, it was those small, ridiculously quick guys. It wasn't necessarily fast guys. They were just ridiculously quick. You think about Wes Welker. He's 5'8", 5'7".
But they play bigger than their size. They play big, though, dude.
They're thicker guys because they want to be able to take a hit over the middle. They want them to block, too. Like, they've got to be able to block. Kirk, he was a willing blocker. I will say that I liked more of his blocking. His frame wasn't big enough. Like, a lot of times he'd just get tossed. He'd be trying hard. I will say I loved his personality on the silent film. Like, you can tell a lot about a guy's personality from the silent tape, from what you can hear off the silent tape. And I loved it. He was feisty. He was a competitor. So I really liked that side. You think of Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola. These were all short guys. They want short, low center of gravity, insanely quick change of direction guys. So for me, it's like, okay, can Jalen Noel be that? Can he be that crazy quick? Because that's who they want. If a team's going to say, okay, we're going to stack and we're going to come inside leverage on Nico Collins, and we're going to press him, and we're going to keep that safety rolled over to take away anything deep on the outside. Okay, we're doubling your big-bodied guy. This is a classic Belichick thing. And so, and we can do that on the other side with Jaden Higgins. You've got your big-bodied guys. You've got to have a guy who is insanely quick that if I stack him behind Higgins, who's a big-bodied guy, and you can't get your hands on him, and you're trying to play man coverage, press man, and it's going to be that, then this is deadly for you. Like, you are in some serious trouble because he's so shifty and so fast. He's going to take a jab step outside. Your corner's going over there. He's now walled off against that interference, and this guy's taking a little slant to the house. Let me see if I have this clip in here. I think it was against the Raiders. Yeah, I got it here. So this would be
that's what was frustrating at Texans fans. Like, we just assumed that maybe Noel wasn't ready, because we all thought that he was making plays when he's out there. Maybe he wasn't as good enough a blocker yet, but so we're all hoping that they unleash him this year.
So here's Kirk. Okay, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So they're going to come into a stack here. What are they trying to do? They're saying you're going to press, you're going to be off, and you're going to be off. And we're going to have this guy's on man coverage on Kirk. So this is that classic Shanahan choice concept. So you're going to run a corner route and then a choice route underneath. So this is based upon which direction does this man coverage guy go? Does he go over the interference outside, or does he stay inside? And that's where the choice route's going to have its read, whether it breaks in or out. And you put that behind a big body like Jaden Higgins. That is a large frame that's going to be able to push through the contact. Because a lot of times what teams do, think back to the Super Bowl. This was Russell Wilson throwing a pick in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. They tried to run this little pick play out here, and what happened? Brandon Browner jammed up the receiver who was up on there so hard he couldn't get off the line, and when they tried to run this little interference, he ran into his own guy. Deion Butler jumps the route, right? So you're going to try and bring this up. Well, you got Jaden Higgins who's going to force this up here. You bring second interference on this outside with I think that's Xavier Hutchinson. And so this defensive back's going to fly way outside, right? He's trying to shoot through this, and he overshoots, and now you can break inside, and you hit this guy on the choice route. Whoop, there he goes. And here goes Christian Kirk.
That's sick.
He's off and running. That's what what you want from your slot guys is somebody who can be insanely quick, set those things up, run those choice routes like that. You can
Instinctive too, though. I mean, like, because that's a quick decision. That's not an easy decision to make because it's happening fast.
Yeah, they've got to be clued into onto this guy's body language. Like he's fighting over the top, so I'm going to break inside. So, the 49ers, like I said, they run that with Christian McCaffrey a lot. They ran it with Deebo Samuel a lot. Deebo Samuel would get those, and it would look like these short posts, but it was choice routes. It was choice routes that broke inside, and he'd be taking it through that gut and coming up through there.
You literally come off the ball just looking at that backer. Like, all right, what's he doing? You kind of coming off. Like, all right, once you declare, then I'll go opposite.
Yeah, and there's got to be timing that they work out in training camp of that release to stay inside that guy's head up on that guy on that guy's back and read this and go so that I can break inside or out. And the quarterback, what he's going to be doing is he's reading the same thing, right? He's watching that guy. How does that guy break out? And I'm going to throw it inside. If he stays inside, I'm throwing it out. And it's a great answer. It really creates a lot of problems, especially for the way that these teams run split field defenses now, where they're saying we're going to man up that side. We're going to run man coverage. Like if you're running 3-by-2, we're going to man coverage that. We're going to roll 5 guys over to the 3 receiver side. Now you can run that, and they're picking that guy all day long. And it becomes a really good answer. And so that's something like if you can get that guy, if Jalen Knowles that guy, I mean, think about his 4.3 speed being able to do that. Oh my goodness.
I guess I got to go back and look at his, his short shuttle would probably be, but I mean, to me, he's shifty,
Yeah.
I just don't know. Like you just assume as a Texans fan, were they more invested in Kirk or was he just not ready? Was it blocking? Did he not get the choice route, cerebral stuff down? So that's my question is like, I want him to be the guy, but I'm thinking if we'll see, like they could add a potential veteran like Keenan Allen. There's only a couple fits, in my opinion, that would fit that slot role, a veteran slot to maybe, further develop him in the cerebral side. But whether they do or don't add somebody like that will tell us what they think of him. Is like I'm fine either way, but I just don't know what they think based off of last year.
Yeah, and again, they also could try and double dip into the draft on this and try and address that role again in the draft. It comes down to how do they feel about Jalen Knowles. That's to me. I'm always somebody that I've looked at it and see. Oh yeah, that kid from Georgia. I mean, my goodness.
His name's blanking me right now. Zachariah Branch.
Yeah.
He's got some wiggle, bro.
Yeah, wiggle and crazy fast speed. I think wasn't he the kid? I'm trying to remember the right Georgia kid. There was a kid that was at USC. I watched his 2024 tape and I was like, oh my gosh, like he fit that kind of a role 100%. Yeah. And then he transferred to Georgia. I can't remember if that was Branch or not. It's all these different guys are running together for me. Sure. But any last parting comments? Any thoughts?
No, I mean, someone just wanted to ask in the chat to follow you on your YouTube, but aside from that,
yeah, you can follow me for anybody on the Texans side, Johnny Dell's Football Academy. I do 99% 49er stuff. I'm doing some draft stuff around this time. I've talked about a few different guys. Sam Roush. I love some Sam Roush. I've been over his game film. Bryce Betcher. I looked at him, looked at Zion Williamson, TJ Parker, Derek Moore, Gabe Yakis. Looked at them as edge guys. I really like. Of course, Houston, you're set with your edge guys.
No, we're not. We are, but we're in such a great position.
Plan. You need a succession.
We're in such a great position where we have very few glaring needs. We can start getting best player available truly and looking forward at, guys to like, we could look for a rotational defensive end to be that successor for Danielle Hunter. We could look at tight end to be a successor for Dalton Schultz. We're in a great spot, dude.
I will say, I'm going to hopefully next week do something on Jake Slaughter, center from Florida. I really like him as a center.
Good zone fit too.
He's a good zone fit. He's a smart guy. His tape is really nice to watch. And he was a 9.6, I think was his relative athletic score at the combine. He was one of the top 20, I think, most athletic centers coming out in the draft since 1990. So he's somebody who fits that zone very much schemes. And so, maybe that's somebody that the Texans have their eye on. I hope not. I would like to see him be.
No, y'all take him and Sam Heck. Those are good fits for y'all. We want the gap scheme guys.
You want the gap scheme guys. I will say Caden Proctor's then your guy. Like he's from Alabama. People keep mocking him to the 49ers, and he is not a scheme fit for the 49ers at all. I don't know why that keeps becoming a thing. If they draft him, I would be really surprised. And I'm an Alabama guy. I live in Alabama. I live 70 miles from Tuscaloosa. Okay. I've been by Paul Bryant Stadium a number of times. Caden Proctor's not a Shanahan.
He's also versatile too. I know he's projected to go inside, but he could probably still play tackle. The Texans love versatility on the O-line too. So I mean, just from that and the gap scheme alone, he sounds like a great fit.
He'd be a great fit for Houston. I would be, and I mean, come on. D'Amico's got some serious ties to Alabama. Let's not forget that. Like D'Amico loves him some Alabama. One of the alumni of the Crimson Tide. So, but appreciate everybody. Thank you, Garrett, so much for being on. I know we ran over, but I appreciate it so much. Hit me up. I will return the favor. We'll be on your channel whenever you want. But everyone else, until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners. And I guess we can say go Texans.